The rain hadn't stopped for 3 days, turning the streets into mirrors that reflected a city I barely recognized anymore. I pressed my forehead against the cold glass of the diner window, watching droplets race each other down the pane while my reflection stared back, hollow-eyed, exhausted, wearing the same stained apron I'd worn for the past 10 hours. My feet throbbed in shoes held together by duct tape and hope. "Table 6 needs refills, Emma." Rosa's voice cut through the clatter of dishes and the low hum of late-night conversations. I nodded, grabbed the coffee pot with hands that had long stopped shaking from exhaustion, and moved through the narrow aisles between booths. This was my life now. 70-hour weeks at Rosie's Diner, a studio apartment with a radiator that coughed more than it heated, and silence so thick it pressed against my chest every night. No one looked at me here. I was part of the furniture, as invisible as the chipped tiles beneath their feet, or the flickering neon sign outside that buzzed open 24 hours in angry red letters. I poured coffee for an elderly couple who didn't acknowledge me, collected plates smeared with ketchup and regret, and tried not to think about how I'd ended up here. Tried not to think about the before, when I'd believed in promises whispered in the dark, when I'd thought love meant something more than convenient lies. The bell above the door chimed, letting in a gust of wind that carried the smell of wet asphalt and expensive cologne. I didn't look up immediately. Why would I? People came and went. I was a ghost serving other ghosts. But the diner went quiet, not silent. The coffee machine still hissed. The radio still played some forgotten 80s ballad. But there was a shift in the air, a collective held breath that made my skin prickle. I glanced toward the entrance and felt my heart stumble. 3 men stood just inside the doorway, water dripping from their dark coats onto Rosa's ancient linoleum. The 2 flanking the entrance were built like concrete walls, their eyes scanning the room with mechanical precision, hands resting at their sides in a way that suggested weapons were closer than they appeared. But it was the man in the center who made my fingers tighten around the coffee pot. He was younger than I expected, maybe early 30s, with dark hair swept back from a face that belonged in Renaissance paintings, all sharp angles and dangerous beauty. His suit probably cost more than I made in 6 months, charcoal gray and perfectly tailored, not a wrinkle despite the storm outside. Even from across the diner, I could see the glint of gold at his wrists, the shine of Italian leather shoes that had never known a scuff. He didn't look around the room the way normal people did. His gaze moved with purpose, categorizing, assessing, missing nothing. When his eyes landed on me, I felt it like a physical touch. A brush of heat across my skin that made no sense given the cold radiating from the window behind me. "Emma?" Rosa appeared at my elbow, her voice tight. "Go to the back. Now." "What? Why now?" Her fingers dug into my arm, urgent and afraid, but I couldn't move. The man was walking toward the counter, his guard staying by the door, and everyone in the diner suddenly found their plates fascinating. He moved like water, smooth and inevitable, and I realized with a strange clarity that this was what power looked like. Not loud or aggressive, but absolute. A gravity that bent everything around it. He sat at the counter, 3 stools down from where I stood frozen, and looked directly at me. Up close, he was devastating. Olive skin, eyes so dark they were almost black, a mouth that suggested cruelty, and something else I couldn't name. There was a scar, thin and white, cutting through his left eyebrow, a story written in violence. "Coffee," he said. His voice was low, accented with something Mediterranean. Italian, maybe, or Greek. Each word carefully shaped. "Black." My hands moved on autopilot, grabbing a clean mug, pouring the dark liquid without spilling, despite the tremor that had started in my wrists. I set it down in front of him, careful not to make eye contact again, already turning away. "What's your name?" I froze. Customers asked my name sometimes, usually the drunk ones or the lonely ones looking for conversation I didn't have energy to provide. But this felt different. This felt like a test. "Emma?" My voice came out smaller than I wanted. "Emma." He repeated it like he was tasting it, rolling it around to see how it fit. "You work every night?" Warning bells rang in my head. Rosa was watching from the kitchen doorway, her face pale. The other customers were pointedly not watching, which meant they were watching very carefully. Most nights, I said, aiming for casual and landing somewhere near terrified. Can I get you anything else? No. He lifted the mug, and I noticed his hands. Elegant fingers, but with scars across the knuckles. Working hands despite the expensive watch. This is perfect. I should have walked away, should have retreated to the safety of the kitchen and let Rosa handle whatever this was. But I stood there, caught in the orbit of this stranger who looked at me like he could see through skin and bone to whatever fragile thing was beating underneath. The bell chimed again. I turned, grateful for the distraction, and felt my entire world tilt sideways. Daniel stood in the doorway, rain-soaked and furious, his eyes scanning the diner until they locked on me. My ex-boyfriend. The man who'd taken everything, my savings, my dignity, my ability to trust, and left me with nothing but debt and the taste of betrayal. Emma! He said my name like an accusation, stalking toward the counter. We need to talk. I stepped back instinctively, bumping into the coffee station. There's nothing to talk about, Daniel. You need to leave. Leave? He laughed, harsh and ugly. You owe me, remember? That money you borrowed from my account. You stole from me first. The words burst out before I could stop them, hot and jagged. You took everything I had and disappeared for 6 months. Because you were suffocating me, his hand shot out, grabbing my wrist hard enough to hurt. Always needing, always asking for more. Do you know how exhausting that was? The diner was silent now, truly silent, and I could feel everyone watching my humiliation play out in real time. Tears burned behind my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. Not here, not in front of him. Let go, I whispered. Not until you... Daniel's words cut off abruptly. The man from the counter, the one with the expensive suit and dangerous eyes, was standing now, and though he hadn't moved closer, the temperature in the room seemed to have dropped 10 degrees. She told you to let go. His voice was quiet, conversational almost, but there was something underneath it that raised every hair on my body. I suggest you listen. Daniel's grip loosened slightly, confusion crossing his face as he looked between us. Who the hell are you? The stranger smiled. It was the most terrifying expression I'd ever seen. All teeth and no warmth. A predator's warning before the kill. Someone who doesn't like repeating himself. He took a single step forward, and Daniel released my wrist like I'd burned him. You have 5 seconds to leave before my patience runs out. I'm told I'm unpleasant when that happens. The 2 guards by the door straightened, hands moving to their jackets. Daniel paled, finally understanding that he'd walked into something far beyond his comprehension. This isn't over, Emma, he spat, but he was already backing toward the exit. You think hiding behind your new boyfriend makes you special? You're nothing. You've always been nothing. Who would even marry someone like you? The words hit like physical blows, each one a confirmation of every fear I'd carried since he left. That I was unlovable, disposable. Worth exactly as much as the grease stains on my apron and the calluses on my hands. The door slammed behind Daniel, the bell's cheerful jingle obscenely out of place. I stood there, wrist throbbing where he'd grabbed me, chest tight with humiliation and rage, and something that felt dangerously close to breaking. Emma. The stranger's voice was soft now, and when I finally looked up, his expression had shifted into something I couldn't read. Are you all right? I wanted to lie. Wanted to smile and say I was fine and return to my invisible existence serving coffee and collecting tips, but the words wouldn't come. My throat was too tight, my vision blurring with tears I'd held back too long. I gestured vaguely toward the back. Excuse me. I fled to the storage room, pushing past Rosa, letting the door swing shut behind me. The space was cramped and smelled like bleach and old grease, but it was private. I leaned against the metal shelving, pressing my palms to my eyes, trying to breathe through the panic clawing at my ribs. Who would even marry you? Daniel's voice echoed in my head, mixing with every doubt I'd ever carried. He was right. I was nothing. A girl working a dead-end job in a dying diner, wearing shoes held together with tape, living paycheck to paycheck with no future beyond tomorrow's shift. The door opened. I didn't look up, assuming it was Rosa coming to check on me, maybe tell me to take 5 minutes before returning to face the stares and whispers. Emma. My head snapped up. The stranger stood in the doorway, somehow making the cramped space feel even smaller. His guards were visible behind him, blocking the view from the diner, creating a pocket of privacy that felt more dangerous than comforting. You shouldn't be back here, I managed, wiping at my face with the back of my hand. Employees only. He stepped inside, closing the door behind him. We were alone now, surrounded by industrial cleaners and restaurant supplies, and I should have been terrified, but there was something in his eyes, not pity exactly, but a kind of recognition that made my breath catch. That man, he said carefully. He hurt you. It wasn't a question, but I nodded anyway. How long? We broke up 6 months ago. It doesn't matter. I straightened, trying to find some shred of dignity. Thank you for helping. But I'm fine. You should go back to your coffee. He studied me in silence, and I felt exposed in a way that had nothing to do with the tears still wet on my cheeks, like he was cataloging every bruise, every scar, every piece of damage I'd tried so hard to hide. You're not wearing a ring, he said finally. The observation was so unexpected that I blinked. What? Your left hand. No ring, no tan line, no indentation. You're not married. Heat crept up my neck. That's kind of a personal observation. I notice things. He moved closer and I caught his scent. Expensive cologne with undertones of cedar and something darker, like gunpowder or smoke. Details matter in my line of work. And what work is that? His mouth curved slightly. Import-export. The lie was so obvious it was almost funny. Men in import-export didn't travel with armed guards, or make entire diners go silent with their presence. But I didn't challenge it. Whatever he really was, it was none of my business. Well, thank you again for the help, Mr. Dante. He offered his hand, and after a moment's hesitation, I took it. His palm was warm, calloused in unexpected places, and the contact sent electricity racing up my arm. Dante Salvatore, Emma Chen. The name felt small in comparison, ordinary and forgettable. Emma Chen, he repeated, still holding my hand. I want to make you an offer. Everything in me went still. I'm not interested in whatever you're selling. Not selling. Offering. His thumb brushed across my knuckles, a touch so light I might have imagined it. You need help. I can provide it. I don't need... Your ex-boyfriend will be back. Men like that always come back, especially when they think they have power over you. His eyes darkened. And next time, I might not be here. The truth of it settled over me like ice water. Daniel would return. He'd made that clear. And I had no way to stop him, no resources to fight back with. Nothing but my own exhausted defiance. What kind of help? I heard myself ask. Dante smiled, and this time there was genuine warmth in it, though it didn't quite reach his eyes, the kind that ensures no one ever hurts you again. But first, we need to make sure he believes you're protected, that you belong to someone he can't touch. Belong to... Understanding crashed over me. You're insane. Practical. He released my hand, reaching into his jacket. For a wild moment, I thought he was going for a weapon, but he pulled out a small velvet box instead. Marry me, Emma Chen. The world tilted. I stared at the box, at him, at the absolute madness of what he was suggesting. You don't even know me, I whispered. I know enough. He opened the box, revealing a ring that probably cost more than my entire life, platinum, with a diamond that caught the flickering storage room light and threw it back in sharp, brilliant fragments. I know you work yourself to exhaustion. I know you've been hurt by someone who didn't deserve you. I know you're stronger than you think and more alone than anyone should be. This is crazy. People don't just... You can't just propose to a stranger in a storage room. Why not? He tilted his head, genuinely curious. You need protection. I need... He paused, something flickering across his face too quickly to name. Let's say I have my reasons. This benefits both of us. What reasons? What could you possibly get from... The door burst open. Rosa stood there, eyes wide, and behind her I could see customers craning their necks to see into the back room. "Emma, honey, is everything?" She stopped, gaze dropping to the ring box in Dante's hand. "Oh, we're fine, Rosa." I tried to smile, to project normalcy in a situation that had left normal behind miles ago. "Just talking." "Uh-huh." Rosa's eyes narrowed suspiciously at Dante. "You need me to call someone?" "No. It's okay, really." She didn't look convinced, but she slowly backed out, leaving the door cracked open, a compromise between giving me space and making sure I wasn't in danger. I turned back to Dante, who was watching me with that same unreadable expression. "You need to leave. It's too much. I can't think about it." He interrupted gently. "You don't have to decide right now. But know this. If you say yes, no one will ever make you feel small again. No one will ever hurt you and walk away unscathed. You'll have protection, resources, anything you need." "And what do you get?" I demanded. "Nobody makes an offer like this without wanting something in return." His smile turned sharp. "Clever girl. You're right. I do want something. But that's a conversation for after you've had time to think. I'll be at the Palazzo Hotel, Suite 12. You have 48 hours to decide." He moved past me toward the door, and I caught his arm without thinking. "Wait. Why me? There are thousands of women in this city. Why would you choose some random waitress you met 10 minutes ago?" Dante looked down at my hand on his sleeve, then back up at my face. For just a moment, I saw something raw in his expression. Hunger, longing, something that looked almost like recognition. "Because," he said softly, "when I walked in tonight, you were the only real thing in this entire city. Everything else is just shadows and lies. But you," his hand covered mine, warm and possessive. "You're flesh and blood and fire trying not to burn. And I've been cold for a very long time, Emma." He pulled away gently, leaving me standing there with my heart hammering against my ribs and my mind spinning. At the door, he paused, looking back over his shoulder. 48 hours. Think carefully. Because once you put on that ring, you're mine. And I protect what's mine with everything I have." Then he was gone, his guards falling into step behind him, leaving only the faint scent of cedar and the memory of dark eyes that had seen too much. I stood in the storage room, surrounded by industrial cleaners and the mundane reality of my life, holding a business card I didn't remember him giving me. The Palazzo Hotel was embossed in gold letters, with a phone number written on the back in sharp, precise handwriting. Rosa appeared in the doorway, arms crossed. "Girl, you better tell me what the hell just happened." But I couldn't, because I didn't know. All I knew was that Daniel's words still echoed in my head. Who would even marry you? And somewhere in this city, a dangerous man with kind eyes had just offered me an answer I had no idea how to accept. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the ring. That impossible diamond catching light it shouldn't have been able to find in a storage room that smelled like bleach and broken dreams. Every time I tried to push the memory away, I felt Dante's hand covering mine, warm and certain, like he'd already made a decision that I was still struggling to understand. The business card sat on my nightstand, gold letters gleaming in the pre-dawn darkness. I'd picked it up 17 times, put it down 18. My phone was next to it, screen dark, daring me to make a call I had no business making. "Marry me, Emma Chen." The words should have sounded absurd in the harsh light of morning. They should have dissolved into the kind of fever dream you laugh about later, embarrassed you ever took seriously, but they didn't. They sat in my chest like a stone, heavy and real and terrifyingly solid. I dragged myself out of bed at 5:30, my body protesting every movement. The bruises on my wrist had darkened overnight, 5 distinct marks where Daniel's fingers had dug in. I stared at them while I brushed my teeth, watching the purple-green shadows bloom across my skin like poisonous flowers. Who would even marry you? I covered the bruises with foundation I couldn't afford, and a long-sleeved shirt that had seen better days. Then I walked to the diner because I couldn't afford the bus fare, letting the cold November air bite at my face until my cheeks went numb. Rosa was already there, prepping for the morning rush. She looked up when I entered, her expression carefully neutral. "You look like hell." "Good morning to you, too." I tied on my apron, avoiding her gaze. "Emma." She caught my arm. Not hard. Not like Daniel, but firm enough to make me stop. That man last night. Do you know who he was? He said his name was Dante Salvatore. Rosa's face went pale. Actually pale. All the color draining out until she looked like she'd seen something dead. Jesus, Mary, and Joseph. What? My stomach dropped. Who is he? She pulled me into the kitchen, away from the windows, away from anyone who might overhear. Her hands were shaking when she gripped my shoulders. Emma, honey, you need to listen very carefully. Dante Salvatore is not someone you want involved in your life. I gathered that much from the armed guards. No, you don't understand. Rosa's voice dropped to barely a whisper. My cousin's husband works at the Palazzo. He says Salvatore owns half the city. Restaurants, construction companies, the port. And the other things he owns. She crossed herself. The things you don't talk about unless you want to disappear. The word hung between us, heavy with implication. Mafia. She didn't say it, but she didn't have to. My hands started shaking. He asked me to marry him. He what? Rosa's voice pitched up before she caught herself, glancing toward the dining room. Emma, no. Absolutely not. You need to forget that man exists. You need to... He offered to protect me. From Daniel. Something in my voice must have broken through, because Rosa's expression shifted from fear to something softer, more painful. She'd seen the bruises. She'd watched me flinch every time the door opened, waiting for my ex to return. Protection from men like Daniel comes with a price, she said quietly, and men like Salvatore always collect. I knew she was right. Of course she was right. But when I closed my eyes, I didn't see danger. I saw dark eyes that had looked at me like I mattered, like I was something more than invisible. The morning shift passed in a blur of coffee and eggs and customers who didn't see me. I moved through it mechanically, my mind elsewhere, trapped in a storage room with a man who'd offered me everything and asked for nothing except a yes I couldn't give. At 11, Rosa sent me on break. I stood in the alley behind the diner, breathing in the smell of garbage and exhaust, trying to find my center, trying to remember who I was before Daniel, before the exhaustion, before I'd become this hollow thing just trying to survive. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. How are the bruises? My heart stopped. I stared at the message, read it 3 times, trying to understand how he'd gotten my number. Then I remembered. He'd noticed everything. Details mattered in his line of work, he'd said. He probably owned the diner, probably owned Rosa's cousin's husband, probably owned the whole damn city. I shouldn't respond. Every rational thought screamed at me to delete the message, block the number, pretend last night had never happened. My fingers moved anyway. How did you get this number? The response came immediately. I told you. I notice things. Are you safe? The question hit me like a punch. When was the last time anyone had asked if I was safe? When was the last time anyone had cared enough to check? I'm fine. Liar. He left bruises. I saw them. My throat tightened. Of course he'd seen them. He saw everything. They're just bruises. They'll fade. They shouldn't exist at all. Come to the Palazzo. Let me send a car. I'm working. Not anymore. I bought the diner this morning. You're on paid leave until you make your decision. I read the message 4 times, each word sinking in like stones dropping into deep water. He'd bought the diner, the entire diner, in less than 12 hours. My phone rang, his number. I answered before I could stop myself. You can't just buy someone's business because... I can do whatever I want, Emma. His voice was warm, amused, and underneath it all, absolutely serious. Rosa now has enough money to retire comfortably. Her staff all got raises, and you have time to think without worrying about rent or bills or anything except what you want. What I want. I laughed, the sound harsh and broken. You don't know anything about what I want. Then tell me. The amusement faded, leaving only intensity. Come to the Palazzo. Have lunch with me. No pressure, no expectations. Just conversation between 2 people who might be able to help each other. People don't help each other for free, especially people like you. You're right. He paused, and I heard something in the background. Voices. Movement. the sound of a world I'd never been part of. "I want something from you, Emma. But I promise it's nothing you can't give freely. Nothing that will hurt you. You have my word. The word of a—" I stopped myself, but he caught it anyway. "Of a criminal?" He didn't sound offended. "Yes, but even criminals have codes, and mine is simple. I protect what's mine, and I never break my promises. If I tell you you're safe with me, you are. If I tell you no one will hurt you again, they won't. My word is the only currency that matters in my world, and I don't spend it lightly." I leaned against the alley wall, closing my eyes. This was insane. Everything about this was insane. But Rosa's face when she'd seen the bruises flashed through my mind. Daniel's voice. "Who would even marry you? The endless gray stretch of my life. Day after day of invisible servitude, going nowhere, being nothing." "One lunch," I heard myself say. "Just to talk. Just to talk," he agreed, but something in his tone suggested he knew he'd already won. "I'll send a car in 30 minutes. Wear something comfortable. I don't have anything that— There will be options waiting for you. Trust me." He hung up before I could argue. I stood in the alley for a long moment, staring at my phone, wondering what I'd just agreed to. Then I went back inside, told Rosa I was leaving, and ignored the worry in her eyes. The car arrived exactly 30 minutes later. Not a car. A vehicle that looked like it cost more than I'd make in 10 lifetimes. Glossy black with tinted windows, a driver in a suit who opened the door without speaking, his eyes scanning the street like he expected threats to materialize from the concrete. The interior smelled like leather and money. There was a garment bag on the seat, my name embroidered on it in delicate script. My hands shook as I unzipped it. Inside were 3 dresses, simple but elegant, the kind of clothes I'd seen in store windows and never dared to touch. A note was pinned to the first one, written in the same precise handwriting as the business card. "Choose whichever makes you feel like yourself." I chose the navy blue one because it had long sleeves and would hide the bruises, because it was beautiful in an understated way that didn't make me feel like I was wearing a costume, because when I looked at myself in the small mirror the car provided, I almost didn't recognize the woman looking back. The drive to the palazzo took 20 minutes through parts of the city I'd only seen from bus windows. The hotel rose like a monument to excess, all glass and marble and doormen, who probably made more in tips than I made in a month. The driver opened my door, offering his hand. "Miss Chen, Mr. Salvatore is waiting in the penthouse." Of course he was. Because men like Dante Salvatore didn't wait in lobbies or restaurants like normal people. They waited in penthouses, above everyone else, looking down on a world they owned. The elevator was mirrored, showing me my reflection from every angle. The dress fit perfectly. My hair, which I'd twisted into a simple bun, looked almost elegant, but my eyes gave me away, wide and frightened, like a rabbit that had wandered into a wolf's den. The doors opened directly into the penthouse. Not a hallway, not a foyer. Straight into a space so large my entire apartment could have fit in the entryway. Floor-to-ceiling windows showed the city sprawling below, gray and infinite. Furniture that looked like art, silence that felt expensive. Dante stood by the windows, hands in his pockets, wearing dark slacks and a white shirt with the sleeves rolled up, less formal than last night, but somehow more dangerous. I could see the tattoos on his forearms now, intricate designs that looked Eastern European, words in a language I didn't recognize. He turned when the elevator closed behind me, and his expression did something that made my breath catch. Softened, just for a moment, before the careful control slid back into place. "Emma." He crossed the space between us in 3 long strides. "You're beautiful. The dress is beautiful," I corrected, hating how my voice shook. "I'm just wearing it." "No." He reached out slowly, giving me time to pull away, and touched my chin, tilting my face up to meet his eyes. "The dress is expensive fabric and thread. You're the one who makes it matter." His thumb brushed across my cheekbone, and I realized I was crying. Not sobbing, just silent tears that I hadn't even felt starting. "Why are you being kind to me?" I whispered. "What do you really want?" Dante's expression shifted into something raw and honest. "The truth?" I saw you through the window before I came in last night. You were pouring coffee for a man who snapped his fingers at you like you were a servant. And you smiled at him anyway. A real smile, not the fake ones people use when they want tips. You smiled at him like you genuinely hoped his day got better. He stepped closer, and I could feel the heat radiating from him, smell that cedar scent that had haunted me all night. I've spent 15 years in a world where kindness is weakness and genuine emotion gets you killed, he continued. I've forgotten what it looks like when someone does something good without expecting payment. But you? His hand moved to cup my face, and I should have pulled away, but I couldn't. You reminded me. And I decided right then that I was going to make sure no one ever dimmed that light, no matter what it cost. That's not a reason to marry someone, isn't it? He smiled, sad and knowing. I've seen arranged marriages for money, for power, for territory. I've never seen one for something as simple as wanting to protect someone who deserves better than what life's given them. Maybe that's the most honest reason of all. A phone buzzed. His, somewhere in his pocket. He ignored it, his attention fixed entirely on me like I was the only thing in the world that mattered. Lunch, he said finally, stepping back and offering his arm. I promised you lunch and conversation. Let me keep at least that promise. I took his arm because I didn't know what else to do. Because some part of me, the part that had survived Daniel's betrayal and the endless gray of poverty, wanted to see what it felt like to be treated like I mattered. The dining room overlooked the city from what had to be the 40th floor. A table was set for two, covered with dishes that smelled like heaven. Dante pulled out my chair, waited until I was seated, then took his own seat across from me. Tell me about yourself, he said, pouring wine into crystal glasses that caught the afternoon light. The real you, not the version who serves coffee and apologizes for existing. There's not much to tell. I'm 26. I worked at the diner. Before that, I was in college, studying art history. I laughed bitterly. A lot of good that did me. What happened? Daniel happened. We met my junior year. He was charming, ambitious, said all the right things. I stopped, pushing food around my plate. I thought he loved me. Turned out he just loved having someone to pay his bills while he partied with his friends. When I finally figured it out and confronted him, he cleaned out my bank account and disappeared. I had to drop out. Lost my apartment. Ended up at the diner because Rosa took pity on me. Dante's jaw tightened, a muscle jumping beneath the skin. And last night? Last night was the first time I'd seen him in 6 months. He showed up demanding money, saying I owed him for emotional damages. I pulled up my sleeve, showing the bruises. This is what happens when I say no. The temperature in the room dropped, Dante's eyes fixed on my wrist, and for just a moment, I saw something in his expression that terrified me. Not anger, but cold, calculated fury, the kind that ended with people disappearing. He won't touch you again, Dante said quietly. I give you my word. You keep saying that. Your word. Like it means something in a world where people lie as easily as they breathe. In my world, your word is everything. Break it, and you're dead. He said it matter-of-factly, the way other people might discuss the weather. I've built my reputation on keeping my promises, every single one. So when I tell you that you're safe, that no one will hurt you, that I'll protect you with everything I have, I mean it literally. I set down my fork, my appetite gone. What do you really do, Dante? And don't say import-export. He studied me for a long moment, weighing something. Then he leaned back, his expression unreadable. I run several legitimate businesses. Restaurants, construction, shipping, and I run several less legitimate operations. I settle disputes, I provide protection, I make sure certain elements of this city function smoothly. You're in the Mafia. That's a crude term for a complex organization. But yes, essentially. He didn't look ashamed or defensive, just honest. I inherited my father's position when I was 21. Spent the last decade consolidating power, eliminating threats, building an empire that can't be touched. Why are you telling me this? Because you asked. Because if you marry me, You deserve to know what you're getting into." He reached across the table, his hand palm up, waiting for mine. "I won't lie to you, Emma. Not ever. You'll have protection, resources, respect, but you'll also be tied to a life that most people would run from." I looked at his hand, scarred knuckles, a tattoo on his ring finger that looked like a wedding band made of thorns, a hand that had probably done terrible things, a hand that had also held a ring box and offered me a way out. "What do you want from me?" I asked again, because I still didn't understand. "Really?" Dante's expression shifted into something vulnerable. "My world demands I marry. Politics, tradition, appearances, it all requires a wife. But everyone who's been offered to me comes from the same circles, the same corruption. They see me as a stepping stone, a path to power." He paused. "You don't know my world. You don't want my power. You just want to survive. That honesty is worth more to me than any political alliance. So I'm convenient?" "No." His voice sharpened. "You're real. And in a life built on lies and violence and shadows, real is the rarest commodity there is. I'll give you everything you need, protect you from everyone who's ever hurt you. Ask nothing except that you stand beside me and remember that somewhere under all this blood, I'm still human." The phone buzzed again, insistent this time. Dante swore under his breath, pulling it out and glancing at the screen. His expression darkened. "I need to take this. Will you wait?" I nodded and he stepped out onto the balcony, his voice dropping to rapid Italian that sounded like threats wrapped in silk. I sat alone in the dining room, surrounded by luxury I'd never touch again after today, and tried to understand what was happening to my life. 48 hours ago, I'd been nobody. Now I was sitting in a penthouse, wearing a dress that cost more than my rent, being offered marriage by a man who could probably buy and sell half the city. It was insane. It was terrifying. It was the first time in 6 months that I'd felt anything other than numb. Dante returned, his expression grim. "I'm sorry. Something's come up that requires my attention. My driver will take you home unless—" He hesitated. "Unless you'd like to stay. Think. You still have 24 hours before your deadline." I should go. I stood, suddenly desperate to be back in my tiny apartment where nothing made sense, but at least it was familiar nonsense. He walked me to the elevator, and just before the doors closed, he caught my hand. "Emma, whatever you decide, know this. Last night, when I saw you smiling at that customer, when I saw you being kind despite having every reason to be bitter, that was the first real thing I've seen in 15 years. Don't let people like Daniel convince you that kindness is weakness. It's the strongest thing you possess." The doors closed on his dark eyes and the scent of cedar, leaving me alone with my reflection, and a decision that felt like standing on the edge of a cliff, looking down into darkness that might be falling or might be flying. The driver took me home. My apartment looked smaller than I remembered. Dingier, like I was seeing it through eyes that had adjusted to penthouses and crystal and sunlight from 40 floors up. I sat on my bed, still wearing the navy blue dress, and picked up the business card. 24 hours left to decide if I was brave enough, or desperate enough, to say yes to a man who'd promised me everything and asked only that I help him remember how to be human. My phone buzzed. Daniel's number this time. "You think your rich boyfriend scares me? You're still nothing, Emma, and I'm coming to prove it." My hands started shaking. I stared at the message, at the threat barely concealed in those words, and felt something inside me crystallize into clarity. I didn't want to be nothing anymore. I didn't want to be afraid. I didn't want to spend the rest of my life looking over my shoulder, wondering when the next blow would fall. I picked up my phone and dialed the number on the business card. Dante answered on the first ring. "Emma." "I'll do it," I said, before I could lose my nerve. "I'll marry you." Silence. Then, soft as a prayer. "You won't regret this. I swear it." "I already regret it," I admitted, "but I regret my entire life up to this point. At least this way. I'm choosing my own disaster." He laughed, a real sound, surprised and genuine. I'll send a car tomorrow morning. We have arrangements to make. And Emma? Yes? Thank you for trusting me with this. I won't let you down. He hung up, and I sat in the growing darkness, still wearing a dress that cost more than my rent, and wondered if I'd just made the best decision of my life, or signed my own death warrant. Outside, the city hummed with its usual chaos. Somewhere in it, Daniel was planning his next move, and somewhere in a penthouse high above it all, a man who'd built an empire on blood and shadows was making phone calls that would rearrange my entire world. I had no idea what morning would bring. But for the first time in 6 months, I wasn't afraid to find out. The car arrived at 7 a.m, sleek and black, and completely out of place on my street. Neighbors peeked through curtains, probably thinking the police had finally come for someone. I almost laughed at the irony. The only crime happening here was me. About to marry a man I'd known for less than 48 hours. I'd spent the night packing my life into 2 suitcases. It was depressing how little I'd accumulated in 26 years. Clothes that had seen better days, a few books I couldn't bear to leave behind, photographs from a time when I still believed in happy endings. Everything else, the mismatched dishes, the furniture held together with hope, I left for whoever came next. The driver opened the door without speaking, and I slid into leather seats that smelled like money and decisions I couldn't take back. My phone buzzed as we pulled away from the curb. Rosa, please tell me you're not doing what I think you're doing. I typed back quickly. I'm safe. I promise. I'll explain everything soon. Her response came immediately. That's what people say right before they disappear. I didn't answer because I didn't have words that would make this make sense. How could I explain that I'd rather disappear into Dante's world than continue being invisible in my own? The drive took us out of my neighborhood and into streets I'd only seen in movies. Tree-lined avenues with brownstones that probably had more bathrooms than my entire building had apartments. We stopped in front of one that looked like it had been transported from a European postcard, all ornate iron and golden stone catching the morning light. This is Mr. Salvatore's residence, the driver said. His first words to me. He's waiting inside. The door opened before I could knock. Not Dante, but a woman in her 50s with steel-gray hair pulled into a severe bun and eyes that assessed me in 3 seconds flat. She looked like she could kill someone with a dessert spoon and make it look like an accident. Miss Chen. Her accent was thick. Russian, maybe. I am Katya. I manage Mr. Salvatore's household. Please come. The interior was breathtaking. High ceilings with original crown molding, hardwood floors that gleamed like dark water, artwork that probably belonged in museums, but it didn't feel cold like I'd expected. There were books everywhere. Real books, worn and red, not decorator pieces. Plants in the windows, a blanket thrown over the back of a leather couch like someone actually sat there. It looked lived in. It looked like a home. Mr. Salvatore is in his study, Katya said, leading me down a hallway lined with photographs. I caught glimpses as we passed. A younger Dante with an older man who shared his features, a woman with kind eyes and dark hair, groups of people at celebrations I couldn't name. Family, history, a life I was about to become part of. She knocked on a heavy wooden door, then opened it without waiting for an answer. Miss Chen, sir. The study was smaller than I'd expected, lined with bookshelves and dominated by a massive desk covered in papers. Dante stood by the window, phone pressed to his ear, speaking rapid Italian that sounded like violence wrapped in silk. He was wearing another perfectly tailored suit, this one charcoal with a burgundy tie, and when he saw me, his expression transformed. He ended the call mid-sentence and crossed to me in 3 strides. Emma, you came. Did you think I wouldn't? I thought you might come to your senses. He took my hand, his thumb brushing across my knuckles. Thank God you didn't. Katya cleared her throat pointedly. The appointment is in 2 hours, sir. Miss Chen will need time to prepare. Of course. Katya will help you with everything you need. He hadn't let go of my hand yet. How are you feeling? Terrified. Confused. Pretty sure I'm making a massive mistake. I laughed, the sound brittle. But also, oddly calm? That's the shock. His mouth curved slightly. It'll wear off around the same time you realize what you've agreed to. But by then, It'll be too late to run. Should that comfort me? Probably not. He finally released my hand, and I felt the loss of warmth like a physical thing. But I promise you this, whatever happens, you're protected. My name, my resources, my life, all of it stands between you and anything that would hurt you. Katya made an impatient noise. Sir, time. Go with Katya. She'll take care of you. He hesitated, then added softly, and Emma, you're not making a mistake. You're making a choice. There's a difference. Katya led me up a sweeping staircase to the second floor, into a bedroom that was larger than my entire apartment. A team of women waited there, hair, makeup, a seamstress with measuring tape and pins between her teeth. On the bed lay a dress that made my heart stop. It wasn't white. It was champagne silk that caught the light like liquid gold, simple and elegant, with long sleeves and a neckline that showed nothing but suggested everything. Next to it lay a veil so delicate it looked like spun moonlight. I can't. I touched the fabric with trembling fingers. This is too much. Mr. Salvatore was very specific about what he wanted for you, Katya said, her expression softening slightly. He said you should look like yourself, only more so. Not transformed, just elevated. Tears burned behind my eyes. How did he know my size? He notices everything. She squeezed my shoulder, a gesture that felt almost maternal. We have work to do and not much time. Strip. The next 2 hours passed in a blur of hands and instructions, and the slow transformation of Emma the waitress into someone I barely recognized. The dress fit perfectly, hugging curves I didn't know I had before flowing into a train that whispered against the floor. The makeup was subtle, but made my eyes look enormous, my skin luminous. My hair was left mostly down, just the front pieces swept back and secured with pins that looked like tiny stars. When they finally let me look in the mirror, I understood what Dante had meant. I didn't look like someone else. I looked like myself, if I'd been given every advantage instead of every obstacle, like the person I might have become if life had been kinder. He will not be able to breathe when he sees you, Katya said with satisfaction. Come. It is time. We drove to the courthouse in silence. Not the main one downtown, but a smaller building in a neighborhood that seemed to exist in a pocket outside normal reality, the kind of place where records could be adjusted and questions went unasked. Dante waited on the steps, flanked by 2 men I recognized from the diner. His guards, though they looked slightly less menacing in suits. When he saw me emerge from the car, his expression did something that made my chest tight. He stared. Just stared, like I'd stolen his ability to function, his dark eyes moving over me with an intensity that felt like touch. Emma, he breathed when I reached him. You're elevated? I offered, remembering Katya's word. Devastating. He offered his arm, and I took it, feeling the tension in his muscles. Are you ready? No. But I'm here anyway. That's the spirit. He covered my hand with his. Before we go in, I need you to understand something. This is legal and binding. Once we sign those papers, you're my wife in every way that matters. There's no trial period, no takebacks. You'll have access to everything I own, protection from everyone who would hurt you, and a place in my world whether you like it or not. And what do you get? I asked again, because I still couldn't understand his angle. His expression turned serious. I get someone who chose me knowing exactly what I am, not my power, not my money, just me. That's worth more than you realize. The ceremony was brief and bureaucratic. A judge who clearly knew Dante and knew better than to ask questions. Papers signed with hands that only shook slightly. Rings exchanged. The massive diamond for me, a simple platinum band for him that somehow looked right on his scarred hands. By the power vested in me, I now pronounce you husband and wife. The judge looked at Dante. You may kiss your bride. Dante turned to me, his eyes searching my face. May I? The question surprised me. After everything, the demands, the absolute certainty in his actions, he was asking permission for this. I nodded, not trusting my voice. He cupped my face with both hands, his touch gentle despite the calluses and scars. Then he kissed me, and the world stopped making sense. It wasn't aggressive or possessive like I'd feared. It was soft, almost reverent, like he was tasting something precious he'd been denied too long. When he pulled back, his eyes were dark with something I couldn't name. "Mine," he whispered against my lips. "You're mine now, Emma, and I keep what's mine." I should have been frightened, should have felt trapped. Instead, all I felt was safe. We emerged from the courthouse into gray afternoon light. Dante's hand found mine immediately, his fingers lacing through with a possessiveness that should have bothered me, but didn't. The guards moved to flank us, their eyes constantly scanning, and I realized this was my life now. Always watched, always protected, never alone. "Where are we going?" I asked as we approached the car. "Lunch, celebration, then..." He paused. "Then we need to have a conversation about the practical aspects of this arrangement." The restaurant was exclusive enough that I'd never even heard of it, the kind of place where reservations required connections, and the menu had no prices because if you had to ask, you couldn't afford it. We were shown to a private room overlooking a garden that shouldn't have been possible in the middle of the city. Dante ordered without consulting me. Apparently he noticed what I'd barely touched at the penthouse and what I'd actually eaten. The food came in courses that were more art than sustenance, each bite designed to be an experience. "You're quiet," he observed halfway through the meal. "Having regrets already?" "I'm processing." I set down my fork, meeting his eyes. This morning, I was nobody. Now I'm married to someone who apparently owns half the city. That's a lot to process. "You were never nobody, Emma. You were just surrounded by people too blind to see you." He reached across the table, taking my hand. "Do you want to know why I really asked you to marry me?" "Yes. The real reason." He was quiet for a long moment, his thumb tracing patterns on my palm. 3 months ago, someone I trusted betrayed me, stole money, compromised operations, nearly got my sister killed. I found out it was because his wife, who I'd known since childhood, convinced him to do it. She wanted more power, more money, and she used his love as a weapon. His grip tightened slightly. I realized then that everyone in my world sees marriage as a transaction. Love is just another tool for manipulation. But you loved someone who didn't deserve it. Gave him everything even when he gave you nothing, and when he hurt you, you still smiled at strangers in a diner because you wanted their day to be better. He looked up, and there was such raw honesty in his expression that it hurt to witness. I don't want a wife who sees me as a stepping stone. I want someone who'll be real with me, even when it's uncomfortable. Someone who'll remind me why any of this matters. I saw that in you the moment you smiled at that customer, and I decided right then that I'd do whatever it took to keep that light alive. That's a lot of pressure to put on someone. I whispered. I know, and I'm sorry for that. But I promise you, I'll make it worth it. You'll never be invisible again. You'll never be afraid. You'll never wonder if you matter, because I'll remind you every single day. Before I could respond, his phone rang. He glanced at it, and his expression darkened. I need to take this. Don't move. He stepped out, and I heard his voice through the door, sharp, angry, speaking that rapid Italian that sounded like threats. When he returned, his face was carefully blank, but tension radiated from him. What's wrong? I asked. Daniel was spotted near the courthouse. My people intercepted him before he could cause problems, but he hesitated. He knows we got married, and he's not taking it well. My blood went cold. What does that mean? It means he's making threats, saying you tricked me, that you're after my money, that he's going to expose you as a... He stopped, jaw clenching. It doesn't matter what he's saying. What matters is that he's dangerous and stupid, and that combination gets people killed. You can't... I started, then stopped. Because I'd just married a man who solved problems with violence, who'd probably killed people for less than threatening his wife. I can't what? His eyes fixed on mine, challenging. I can't protect you? I can't make sure he never touches you again? That's exactly what I promised to do. I don't want you to kill him. The words came out strangled. I don't want that on my conscience. Dante's expression softened slightly. He moved around the table, crouching in front of my chair so we were eye level. Emma, listen carefully. Men like Daniel don't stop. They don't learn. They escalate until someone stops them permanently. I've seen it 100 times. There has to be another way. There is. I can have him arrested on charges that will put him away for years. I have evidence of fraud, embezzlement, assault, including the bruises on your wrist. He'll go to prison, and he'll learn very quickly what happens to people who threaten what's mine. His hand cupped my face. But you need to understand, I will not let him hurt you. Whatever it takes, whatever I have to do, that ends today. Tears spilled over. I don't know how to live in your world. You don't have to. You just have to live beside me in it. I'll handle the darkness. You just keep being the light. He kissed my forehead gently. Trust me, Emma. Please. I nodded because I didn't have another choice. Because somewhere in the last 48 hours, I'd stopped being able to imagine a world without him in it. We finished lunch in relative silence, the weight of reality settling over both of us. When we finally left, the sun was setting, painting the city in shades of gold and blood. Take me home, I said as we reached the car. Your home. Our home. Whatever it is now. Dante's expression shifted into something warm and possessive. Our home, he confirmed. And I promise you, Emma, you're safe there. Always. The drive back to the brownstone felt different. I was seeing it through new eyes now, not as a visitor, but as someone who belonged. Katya greeted us at the door, her expression knowing. Your things have been moved to the master bedroom, Mrs. Salvatore, she said, and the name hit me like cold water. Mrs. Salvatore. That was me now. Thank you, Katya. Dante's hand found the small of my back, guiding me inside. We'll take dinner in our room tonight, something simple. Our room. Our life. Our completely insane arrangement that I'd agreed to, because anything was better than invisible. He led me upstairs to a bedroom that was somehow both masculine and welcoming. Dark furniture, soft lighting, books stacked on the nightstand. My suitcases sat in the corner, looking pathetic next to the expensive wardrobes. The closet is yours, Dante said, watching me take it in. Katya will arrange for anything you need. And Emma, he waited until I looked at him. This marriage may have started as a transaction, but I meant every word I said at that courthouse. You're mine now, and I protect what's mine with everything I have. He crossed to me slowly, giving me time to pull away, and when I didn't, he wrapped his arms around me. I collapsed against his chest, breathing in cedar and gunpowder and safety, and let myself cry for the first time since this all began. I've got you, he murmured into my hair. I've got you, and I'm never letting go. Outside, the city hummed with its usual chaos. Somewhere in it, Daniel was learning what happened when you threatened a Salvatore's wife, and in a bedroom that smelled like cedar and new beginnings, I stood in the arms of a man who'd promised me everything, and wondered if I was brave enough to believe him. My phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. Congratulations on your marriage, Emma. Your husband should know. His pretty little wife has secrets. Ask her about the baby she gave up 3 years ago. Ask her what else she's hiding. My blood turned to ice. The phone slipped from my fingers, clattering to the floor. Dante bent to pick it up, reading the message, and when he looked at me, his expression was unreadable. Emma. His voice was careful, controlled. Is this true? And just like that, my perfect fantasy shattered. Because of course Daniel knew. Of course he'd kept that card to play when it would hurt the most. And now the man I'd married, the man who'd promised to protect me, was looking at me like I was a stranger. I can explain, I whispered. Then explain. He handed me the phone, his face carved from stone, because my enemies now know something about my wife that I don't, and in my world, that's how people die. I looked at the message, at Dante's closed expression, at the life I'd built in less than 2 days, and wondered if this was where it all came crashing down. But I'd promised him honesty, real, even when it was uncomfortable. So I took a breath and told him the truth that had been eating me alive for 3 years. The words wouldn't come at first. They sat in my throat like broken glass, sharp and dangerous, threatening to tear me apart from the inside. Dante stood perfectly still, waiting, his expression carved from marble. The silence stretched between us, heavy with the weight of secrets about to surface. I was 23. I finally managed, my voice barely above a whisper. Still in college, working 2 jobs to pay tuition, I met someone, not Daniel, someone before him. Marcus. He was older, sophisticated, said all the things I needed to hear after growing up with nothing. I couldn't look at Dante's face. Instead, I stared at my hands, at the massive diamond that now felt like a shackle. I got pregnant. Marcus said he'd support me, that we'd figure it out together. Then he disappeared. Changed his number, moved out of his apartment, left me with nothing except a baby I couldn't afford to keep. The memory came rushing back, the clinic with its fluorescent lights and sympathetic nurses, the forms I'd signed with shaking hands, the social worker who'd promised the couple adopting my daughter would give her everything I couldn't. A good home, stability, love. I gave her up for adoption when she was 3 days old. Tears streamed down my face now, hot and unstoppable. I held her for 3 days, memorized every detail of her face, and then I handed her to strangers because I couldn't even afford to feed myself, let alone a baby. I finally looked up at Dante. His expression hadn't changed, but something flickered in his eyes. Not judgment. Not yet. But calculation. Assessing this new information, figuring out how it affected his world. Her name is Sophia. The adoptive parents send me updates once a year through the agency. She's healthy, happy, loved. She has everything I couldn't give her. My voice broke. I don't regret giving her a better life, but I've hated myself every single day for not being strong enough to keep her. Why didn't you tell me? His voice was quiet, dangerous in its control. Because we've known each other for 48 hours. The words burst out, sharp with desperation. Because you married me to have someone real in your life, and what's more real than complete failure? I couldn't even keep my own child. Emma. No, you need to hear this. I was spiraling now, all the shame and guilt I'd buried for 3 years pouring out. I'm not the person you think I am. I'm not kind and genuine and worth protecting. I'm someone who gave away her baby because she was too weak and poor and pathetic to figure out how to survive. Daniel's right. Who would want to marry someone like that? Dante moved so fast I didn't have time to react. One moment he was across the room. The next his hands were framing my face, forcing me to look at him. His eyes were blazing now, dark and fierce and absolutely furious. Don't. His voice was low, shaking with barely contained rage. Don't you dare let his poison into your head. Don't you dare believe for 1 second that what you did was weakness. I gave away my daughter. You gave your daughter a chance at a life you couldn't provide. That's not weakness, Emma. That's the most profound love I've ever heard of. His thumbs brushed away my tears. The gesture impossibly gentle despite the intensity in his expression. You were 23, alone, with no resources and no support. And instead of choosing the easy path, instead of choosing what would hurt less for you, you chose what was best for her. That takes more strength than most people possess in their entire lives. I stared at him, unable to process his words. You're not angry? Angry. He laughed, the sound harsh. I'm furious, but not at you. At every person who failed you. At the man who left you pregnant and alone. At a system that forced you to make that choice. At Daniel for using your trauma as a weapon. His grip tightened slightly. But at you? Never. Your enemies know. My enemies know that my wife made an impossible choice and survived it. That's not weakness they can exploit, Emma. That's armor. He pulled me against his chest, his heart hammering beneath my ear. Anyone who tries to use this against you will learn very quickly what happens when they hurt what's mine. I clung to him, my fingers digging into his shirt, breathing in his scent and trying to believe his words. I should have told you before we got married. Yes, you should have, but I understand why you didn't. He pulled back enough to look at me. From now on, no more secrets. I need to know everything about you, not to judge you, but to protect you. In my world, information is currency. If I don't know something, I can't defend against it. His phone buzzed insistently. He swore under his breath, releasing me to check it. His expression darkened as he read, jaw clenching. What is it? I asked, wiping at my face. Daniel's made a mistake. He typed rapidly, his movements sharp and angry. He sent that message from his actual phone, probably drunk and stupid. My people have his location. They're moving in now. Dante, please. He threatened you. Tried to weaponize your trauma. used information he had no right to possess. His eyes met mine, and they were absolutely cold. That doesn't get forgiven, Emma. That gets answered. What are you going to do to him? Exactly what I promised. He'll be arrested on multiple charges: fraud, embezzlement, stalking, assault. I have enough evidence to put him away for 10 years minimum. He'll go to a prison where I have influence, where he'll learn very quickly that there are consequences for touching what belongs to me. He crossed back to me, his hand cupping my face. He will never hurt you again. I give you my word. Before I could respond, there was a sharp knock on the door. Dante called permission to enter, and one of his guards stepped in, the broader one from the diner, with a scar across his temple and eyes that had seen too much. Sir, we have a situation. Dante's expression shifted instantly. All business. What kind of situation? The Kozlov family. They've requested a meeting. Tonight. They're saying it's about your recent marriage. The guard's eyes flicked to me briefly. They're implying it affects existing arrangements. Something dangerous crossed Dante's face. Tell them I'll meet them at the warehouse in 2 hours. Full security detail. Sir, I know what it is, Marco. That's why I want you there. He turned to me, and his expression softened slightly. I need to handle this. It shouldn't take long. What's happening? Fear crept into my voice. Who are the Kozlovs? Another family. We have agreements in place. Business arrangements that sometimes involve marriages between families. He hesitated. There was an understanding that I would eventually marry Viktor Kozlov's daughter, Irina. It wasn't official, but it was expected. My stomach dropped. So, by marrying me, I disrupted their plans, made them look weak in front of the other families. He gripped my shoulders. This is my fault. I should have handled it before bringing you into this. But I promise you, I will fix it. How do you fix something like that? His smile was sharp and cold. By reminding Viktor Kozlov that I don't take orders from anyone, that I make my own choices, and anyone who doesn't like it can try to do something about it. He kissed my forehead. Stay here. Katya will be right outside if you need anything. Don't answer the door for anyone except her. Don't leave this room. Understand? You're scaring me. Good. Fear keeps you careful, and careful keeps you alive. He moved toward the door, then paused. Emma, what you told me about Sophia, that doesn't change anything. You're still mine. You're still under my protection, and anyone who tries to use your past against you will regret it. I promise you that. Then he was gone, Marco following, and I was alone in a bedroom that suddenly felt like a cage. I paced for 10 minutes before my anxiety became unbearable. This was insane. I'd married a stranger, told him my deepest secret, and now he was going to some meeting with people who were apparently angry that he'd chosen me over their daughter. This was exactly the kind of situation that got people killed in movies. My phone buzzed. Unknown number again, but different from Daniel's message. Mrs. Salvatore, my name is Irina Kozlov. I think we should talk. Woman to woman. There's a cafe 3 blocks from your new home. Come alone. I just want to understand what kind of person would steal another woman's future. I stared at the message, every instinct screaming that this was a trap. Dante had told me not to leave, had made it clear that his world was dangerous, and I needed to be careful. But another part of me, the part that had survived Daniel's betrayal, and giving up my daughter, and 3 years of barely existing, that part wanted answers, wanted to face this woman who apparently thought she had a claim on my husband. I was tired of being protected like I was fragile, tired of being kept in the dark while men made decisions about my life. I grabbed my jacket and headed for the door. Katya was in the hallway, her expression instantly suspicious. Mrs. Salvatore, Mr. Salvatore said you were to stay in your room. I need air. I'm just going for a walk. Then I'll accompany you. No. I tried to sound firm instead of terrified. I'm not a prisoner here, Katya. I just need 20 minutes alone, please. She studied me for a long moment, and I saw the calculation in her eyes. She could stop me, physically restrain me if necessary, but that would mean treating me like a captive instead of the lady of the house. 20 minutes, she finally said. But you take this. She pressed something into my hand. a small panic button on a keychain. You press this, and help comes immediately. You understand? I nodded, pocketing it, and fled before she could change her mind. The cafe was exactly where Irina had said, a small, upscale place that was mostly empty at this hour. She sat at a corner table, and when she looked up, I understood why Viktor Kozlov had thought Dante would marry her. She was stunning. Pale blonde hair, ice blue eyes, the kind of bone structure that belonged on magazine covers. She wore a cream-colored dress that probably cost more than my old car, and diamonds glittered at her throat and wrists. Everything about her screamed money and breeding and power, everything I wasn't. Emma Chen. She gestured to the seat across from her. Or should I say Emma Salvatore now? Please sit. I sat, because I'd come this far. Might as well see it through. What do you want? Direct. I like that. She sipped something that looked like espresso. I want to understand how a waitress with no connections, no family, no power, managed to marry the most eligible man in our world in less than 48 hours. That's between Dante and me, is it? Her smile was sharp, because his choice affects everyone. My family was promised an alliance through marriage. Your existence disrupts years of carefully laid plans. So no, it's not just between you and Dante. It's between your husband and every family in this city who expected him to honor his commitments. He didn't make any commitments to you. He said it was just an understanding. In our world, understandings are as binding as contracts. She leaned forward. Tell me, Emma, what did you offer him that I couldn't? Was it the novelty? The idea of rescuing some poor, broken thing from her pathetic life? The words stung because they were too close to my own fears. I don't have to explain myself to you. No, you don't. But you should know what you've walked into. Her expression hardened. Dante Salvatore is not a man who makes impulsive decisions. Everything he does serves a purpose. So either you're part of some plan I don't understand yet, or he's having a breakdown that will get people killed. Either way, you're a liability. I'm his wife. For now. But marriages in our world are flexible. Annulments happen. Accidents happen. People disappear. She said it casually, like discussing the weather. I'm not threatening you. I'm simply explaining reality. You're in over your head, and eventually you'll realize that. When you do, it would be better for everyone if you just left quietly. With a generous settlement, of course. My hands were shaking. I clasped them together under the table, trying to project confidence I didn't feel. I'm not going anywhere. We'll see. Irina stood gracefully. One more thing, Emma. Your husband keeps secrets, big ones. You think you know what you've married into, but you don't, not really. And when you find out the truth about why he really married you, when you discover what he's been hiding, remember that I tried to warn you. She left a business card on the table. When you need help, and you will, call me. Woman to woman, like I said. Then she was gone, leaving me alone with her perfume and my racing heart and questions I had no way to answer. I sat there for 5 minutes trying to process. Then I pulled out my phone and saw 17 missed calls from Dante. My blood went cold. I pressed call back. He answered before the first ring finished. Where are you? His voice was deadly quiet. I met with Irina Kozlov. She wanted to talk. You what? The explosion of rage made me flinch. Emma, I told you to stay in the room. I told you not to leave for a reason. She said she just wanted to talk, woman to woman. And you believed her? Jesus Christ, Emma, do you have any idea how dangerous? He cut himself off, and I heard him breathing hard, fighting for control. Where are you right now? Exact location, I told him. He swore viciously in Italian. Stay there. Don't move. Don't talk to anyone. I'm sending Marco to get you right now. And then we're having a conversation about what it means to be my wife in my world. Do you understand? Yes, I whispered. He hung up. I sat in the cafe, staring at Irina's business card, and wondered if I'd just made the biggest mistake of my very short marriage. Marco arrived 3 minutes later, his expression grim. Mrs. Salvatore, the car. The drive back to the brownstone was silent and suffocating. Marco's disapproval radiated from the front seat. When we pulled up, Dante was pacing in front of the house, still in his suit, but with his tie loosened, and his hair disheveled like he'd been running his hands through it. He pulled my door open before Marco could, his eyes blazing. "Inside. Now." I followed him into the house, up the stairs, into our bedroom. The moment the door closed, he whirled on me. "Do you understand what you just did? What could have happened?" His voice was low and shaking with fury. "Irina Kozlov is not your friend. She's not some concerned woman looking out for you. She's the daughter of a man who currently wants me dead for embarrassing him. Meeting with her alone, with no protection, after I explicitly told you to stay here. I'm not a child." The words burst out. "I'm not some fragile thing that needs to be locked away for her own good. She sent me a message. I made a choice. A choice that could have gotten you killed." He grabbed my shoulders, not hard enough to hurt, but firm enough to force me to look at him. "You want to know what happened at that meeting with Victor?" He threatened war. Actual war, Emma, because I married you instead of his daughter. And while I was trying to negotiate peace, my wife was meeting with his daughter, alone, completely vulnerable. Do you have any idea what he could have done with that information? Tears burned my eyes. I just wanted to understand. Then you ask me. You talk to me. You don't go running off to meet with my enemies because you're curious. His grip loosened, his expression shifting from rage to something that looked almost like fear. When Katya told me you'd left, when I couldn't reach you, I thought... He stopped, pulling away, pressing his palms to his eyes. I thought I'd lost you. Thought someone had taken you, or hurt you, or worse. And all I could think was that I'd failed. That I'd promised to protect you and already failed. The raw vulnerability in his voice broke something in me. I'm sorry. I didn't think... That's the problem. You didn't think. Because you still don't understand what my world is like. He turned back to me, and his face was etched with exhaustion. People don't just threaten each other in my world, Emma. They act. They take. They hurt what matters most because that's how you break someone. He crossed to me, his hands framing my face with desperate gentleness. You matter most. You're my weakness now, the one thing people can use against me. And if you don't take this seriously, if you don't follow the rules designed to keep you safe, then I can't protect you. And if I can't protect you, then this whole thing, this marriage, this gamble on something real, it all falls apart. I'm sorry. I whispered again. I won't do it again. Yes, you will. Because you're stubborn and brave and stupid, just like me. A ghost of a smile crossed his face. But from now on, you're stubborn and brave and stupid with an armed guard. Everywhere you go, Marco or someone from my security team goes with you. No exceptions. No arguments. Understood? I nodded, and he pulled me against his chest, his arms wrapping around me like he could shield me from the entire world through sheer force of will. What did Irina say to you? He asked into my hair. I told him everything. Her warnings, her implications, her suggestion that Dante had secrets I didn't know about. He listened in silence, his body growing more tense with each word. She's right about one thing, he said finally. I do have secrets. Things I haven't told you because we've only known each other 2 days, and some truths require time to share properly. He pulled back to look at me, but I promise you this. I will tell you everything, every dark corner of my life, every choice I've made, every body I've buried. You deserve to know who you married. But it has to be on our timeline, not because my enemies are trying to manipulate you. Tell me now. I met his eyes. Tell me why you really married me. Because if there's something more than what you've said, I need to know. He was quiet for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Then he sighed, running a hand through his hair. 3 years ago, my sister Lucia was kidnapped. She was pregnant at the time, terrified, held for ransom by a rival family. I got her back, but... His voice cracked slightly. But the trauma caused her to lose the baby. A daughter. She would have been named Sophia. My heart stopped. Sophia. When I saw you in that diner, when I learned your name was Emma Chen, something about you felt familiar. Then I investigated, ran a background check like I do with everyone who comes into my orbit. And I found out about your daughter, about Sophia, about the adoption. He looked at me with such raw pain it hurt to witness. The couple who adopted her, they're friends of my family. Sophia isn't just some random child, Emma. She's being raised by people I trust, people I vetted personally when they asked for help with the adoption. The world tilted sideways. You knew? This whole time, you knew about my daughter? Yes. And I know exactly where she is, how she's doing, that she's happy and healthy and loved. I've been watching over her from a distance, making sure she had everything she needed because— He took a shaky breath. Because in some broken way, protecting your daughter felt like protecting the one I couldn't save, I couldn't breathe, couldn't process. So you married me because of my daughter? Because I reminded you of your sister? No. God, no. He gripped my face, forcing me to look at him. I married you because you were real and kind and exactly what I needed. But yes, when I found out about Sophia, when I realized I could give you a way to be close to your daughter again, to watch her grow up even if she never knows you're her mother, that made the decision easier. I could protect you and give you access to the one thing you wanted most. That's not manipulation, Emma. That's fate finally being kind for once. I can't. Tears streamed down my face. Where is she? Can I see her? She's safe. She's 3 blocks from here. The Castellanos, the couple who adopted her, they're good people, Emma. Marco and his wife, Sophia. You've already met him. His thumb brushed away my tears. And yes, you can see her. As much as you want. We'll figure out a way to make you part of her life without disrupting what she knows. But that's your choice. I won't force anything. I collapsed against him, sobbing now. All the grief and loss and impossible hope crashing over me at once. My daughter was 3 blocks away, being raised by Dante's guard and his wife. Safe and loved, and so close I could almost touch her. Why didn't you tell me? I managed through my tears. Because I needed you to choose me first. Choose this life, this marriage, without the leverage of your daughter hanging over your head. I needed to know you wanted this for you, not just for her. He pulled back, his eyes shining with unshed tears. Was I wrong? I thought about it. Really thought about it. About the man who'd offered me protection without knowing I had a daughter to protect, who'd looked at me in a diner and seen something worth saving, who'd married me knowing my secrets and loved me anyway. Or was learning to. No, I whispered. You weren't wrong. But Dante, no more secrets. Please. I can't do this if you keep things from me. No more secrets, he promised. From either of us. We're in this together now. Whatever comes next, we face it as a team. He kissed me then, deep and desperate and full of promises we were both terrified to believe. And in a bedroom that smelled like cedar and new beginnings, I let myself hope that maybe, just maybe, this insane gamble would somehow work. Because 3 blocks away, my daughter was sleeping safely, and in my arms was a man who'd moved heaven and earth to give me that gift, without asking for anything in return except honesty. Maybe that was what love looked like. Not perfect, not easy, but real. And in Dante Salvatore's dangerous world, real was the rarest treasure of all. The next morning I woke wrapped in Dante's arms, his heartbeat steady beneath my ear, and for a moment, just one perfect crystalline moment, I let myself believe this could actually work. Then reality crashed back. Daniel was in custody. The Kozlov family wanted blood. And somewhere 3 blocks away, my daughter was waking up in a home I'd never seen, with parents I'd never met, living a life I'd given away. Stop thinking so loud, Dante murmured against my hair. I can hear your brain spinning from here. How can you tell I'm thinking? Your breathing changes, gets faster, shallower, like you're preparing to run. His arms tightened around me. You're not running. Not anymore. Whatever's in your head, we face it together. I turned in his embrace, studying his face in the early morning light. He looked younger like this, vulnerable, almost soft, the dangerous edges smoothed by sleep. I want to see her, Sophia. Today. Something flickered in his eyes, understanding, maybe, or concern. Are you sure? Once you see her, once she becomes real instead of abstract, it's going to hurt more. You know that, right? It already hurts. Every single day for 3 years it's hurt. At least this way, I'll know she's okay. That I made the right choice. My voice cracked. Please, Dante. I need to see my daughter. He studied me for a long moment, then nodded. Okay. But we do this carefully. Marco and Sofia don't know you're Sofia's birth mother. As far as they know, you're just my wife who wants to meet my guards' families. We keep it normal, casual. You don't get to tell her who you are. Not yet. She's 3 years old, Emma. She doesn't understand adoption or birth mothers. All she knows is Marco and Sofia are her parents. Each word was a knife, but he was right. I'd given up the right to call myself her mother the day I'd signed those papers. I understand. And if it becomes too much, if you need to leave, you tell me immediately. No pretending you're fine. Promise me. I promise. He kissed my forehead, then climbed out of bed, already reaching for his phone. I'll call Marco. Tell him we're coming by this afternoon. That you want to meet Sofia properly. Maybe bring a gift for the baby. They have a baby? Dante's expression softened. Sofia gave birth 6 months ago. A boy, Luca. Sofia adores him. Marco sends me pictures constantly of her trying to help with everything. The image hit me like a physical blow. My daughter had a little brother, a family, a life so complete and full that my absence didn't leave a hole at all. Emma. Dante was back at my side, his hands framing my face. Breathe. Just breathe. You did the right thing. You gave her everything she needed. Don't let guilt poison that gift. I nodded, but the tears came anyway. He held me through them, patient and solid, until I could breathe again without feeling like I was drowning. The day passed in a blur of preparation. Katya helped me choose an outfit that looked expensive but not ostentatious. Cream slacks and a soft blue sweater that somehow made me look put together instead of like I was falling apart. We went shopping for a gift, and I spent an hour in a toy store trying to choose something perfect, before Dante gently steered me toward a beautiful children's book about a brave little girl. She loves stories, he said quietly. Marco says she makes them read to her 10 times a night. The detail broke my heart. I didn't know my daughter loved stories. Didn't know anything about her except what an agency sent in annual updates. Height, weight, developmental milestones. Nothing about who she was becoming. At 3 o'clock, we drove to Marco's house. It was a beautiful brownstone similar to Dante's but slightly smaller, with a small garden out front and toys scattered on the porch. Evidence of life, of family, of everything I'd wanted and couldn't have. Marco opened the door before we knocked, his expression carefully neutral. Mr. Salvatore, Mrs. Salvatore, welcome. Marco, thank you for having us. Dante's hand found the small of my back, steadying. Is Sofia home? In the kitchen with the children. Please come in. The house smelled like cookies and baby powder and happiness. We followed Marco through a hallway lined with family photos. Marco and Sofia's wedding. Sofia as an infant, as a toddler, holding baby Luca with the expression of fierce pride. My daughter, growing up in snapshots I'd never been part of. Sofia appeared from the kitchen, wiping flour from her hands, a warm smile on her face. She was beautiful in an understated way. Dark hair pulled back, kind eyes, the sort of person you instinctively trusted with precious things. Mr. Salvatore, what a lovely surprise, and you must be Emma. Marco's told me so much about the wedding. Congratulations. She pulled me into a hug before I could prepare, and I smelled vanilla and home and everything I'd lost. Thank you, I managed. I hope we're not intruding. Not at all. Sofia's been so excited since Marco told her you were coming. She's in the living room with Luca, fair warning. She's very chatty, and will probably ask you a million questions. My heart was hammering so hard I thought everyone must be able to hear it. Dante's hand squeezed mine once, quick and reassuring. Then Sofia was leading us through to a sunny living room where she was there. My daughter, my Sofia. She was perfect. Dark hair like mine, but with curls I'd never had. Olive skin. Enormous brown eyes currently fixed on a puzzle spread across the coffee table. She wore pink overalls with flowers embroidered on the pockets and had a juice box clutched in one small hand. Sofia, sweetie, we have visitors, Sofia called gently. My daughter looked up, and when her eyes met mine, Something in my chest cracked open. Recognition, maybe, or just the overwhelming reality of seeing the person I'd created. The life I'd given away. Real and solid, and so heartbreakingly beautiful I could barely stand it. "Hi!" Sophia scrambled to her feet, all 3-year-old energy and unself-consciousness. "I'm Sophia. That's my baby brother Luca. He's sleeping, so you have to be quiet." "Are you Daddy's boss?" "Daddy says his boss is very important." Dante crouched down to her level, his expression soft in a way I'd never seen. "And this is my wife, Emma. We brought you something." I knelt beside Dante, my hands shaking as I offered the wrapped book. "It's a story about a brave girl. Your dad said you like stories." "I love stories." She took the book with both hands, eyes wide. "Can you read it to me? Mama's making cookies, and Daddy has to watch Luca, and I really want to know what happens." I looked at Sophia, who smiled and nodded. "If you don't mind." She's insatiable when it comes to books. "I'd love to," I whispered. Sophia grabbed my hand, her small fingers wrapping around mine, warm and trusting, and pulled me to the couch. She climbed up beside me, pressing close, and I breathed in her scent. Baby shampoo and juice and something indefinably her, my daughter. My Sophia. Alive and happy, and so close I could touch her. I opened the book with trembling hands and began to read. Once upon a time, there was a brave little girl who lived in a castle made of clouds. And Sophia leaned against my side, her head resting on my arm, completely trusting. Dante sat across from us, his expression unreadable but his eyes suspiciously bright. And I read her the story about the brave little girl who went on adventures and saved kingdoms and lived happily ever after. When I finished, Sophia looked up at me with those enormous eyes. "Did you like the story?" "I loved it," I managed. "Me too." The girl was brave, like Mama says I should be. She tilted her head, studying me with unsettling intensity. "You're really pretty, and you smell nice, like flowers." Tears burned my throat. "Thank you, sweetheart. Will you come back? To read more stories?" She asked it so hopefully, so innocently, not knowing she was offering me everything I'd lost. I looked at Dante, who nodded almost imperceptibly. "Yes," I told my daughter. "I'll come back whenever you want to hear stories. Yay." She threw her arms around my neck in an impulsive hug, and I held her, really held her for the first time in 3 years. She was solid and warm and real, and I memorized every detail, the curl of her hair, the softness of her cheek, the way she smelled like innocence and joy. "I like you," Sophia declared, pulling back. "You're nice. Can we be friends?" "I would love to be your friend," I whispered. Baby Luca woke up then, his cries echoing from upstairs. Sophia excused herself to handle it, and Marco and Dante moved to the kitchen to discuss something work-related, leaving me alone with Sophia and her toys and the crushing weight of bittersweet joy. "Do you have kids?" Sophia asked, returning to her puzzle. The question knocked the air from my lungs. No, not anymore." "That's sad. Kids are fun. Luca cries a lot, but I love him anyway." She looked up at me with those wise, ancient eyes that children sometimes have. "Maybe you'll get a baby someday. Then you can be a mama like my mama." "Maybe," I managed, my vision blurring. She went back to her puzzle, humming tunelessly, completely unaware that she'd just shattered my heart into pieces so small I'd never reassemble them. Dante found me 20 minutes later, still on the couch, watching Sophia play. He sat beside me, his hand finding mine. "How are you holding up?" "She's perfect," I whispered. "Happy and safe and perfect. I made the right choice." "You did." His thumb traced circles on my palm. "Are you ready to go? Or do you need more time?" I looked at my daughter, memorizing this moment, her concentration as she fitted puzzle pieces together, the way she chewed her bottom lip when thinking, the pure contentment radiating from her. Then I looked at Dante, at this man who'd given me this gift without asking for anything in return. "I'm ready." We said our goodbyes. Sophia hugged me again, made me promise to come back soon. then returned to her puzzle without a backward glance. Because I was just a nice lady who read her a story, not the woman who'd carried her for 9 months and held her for 3 days and loved her enough to let her go. The drive home was silent. Dante kept my hand in his, occasionally squeezing, letting me process. When we reached the brownstone, I fell apart completely. He carried me upstairs, laid me on our bed, and held me while I sobbed out 3 years of grief and loss and impossible love. He didn't try to fix it or minimize it. He just held me and let me break. "Thank you," I finally whispered when I could speak again. "For that, for her, for everything. You don't have to thank me for giving you access to your own daughter. Yes, I do. Because you didn't have to. You could have kept that information from me, used it as leverage. Instead, you gave it freely." I pulled back to look at him. "Why? Why are you so good to me?" His expression turned vulnerable. "Because someone needs to be, and because—" He hesitated, then continued softly. "Because I'm falling in love with you, Emma. I know it's fast and probably crazy, but I can't help it. You're everything I thought I'd lost the ability to feel, and I want to spend every day proving that you made the right choice, trusting me." My heart stopped, then started again, faster. "You can't love me. We've known each other 3 days. Tell that to my heart." He smiled, sad and knowing. "I'm not asking you to say it back. I know you're not there yet. Maybe you'll never be. But I needed you to know. No more secrets, remember?" I stared at him, at this dangerous, powerful man who just admitted vulnerability with the same intensity he approached everything else. Then I kissed him, pouring everything I couldn't say into the contact. Gratitude and hope, and the terrifying possibility of falling for him too. The next few weeks fell into a rhythm. Days spent learning to navigate Dante's world, meeting his associates, attending events where I smiled and played the part of the perfect wife, while guards watched from shadows. Nights spent in his arms, learning his scars and stories, building something real from our imperfect beginning. And every few days, visits to Marco and Sophia's house. Reading to Sophia, watching her grow and laugh and live the life I'd given her. It hurt every time, but it was a good hurt. The kind that reminded me I'd done something right, even when everything else was wrong. Daniel's trial came and went. He was sentenced to 8 years for fraud and assault, sent to a prison where Dante's influence meant he'd learn quickly what happened to men who hurt his wife. I didn't attend the trial. Didn't need to. That chapter was closed. The Kozlov situation resolved through tense negotiations and strategic compromises that Dante never fully explained. Irina sent me a final message. "You won. But victories in our world are temporary. Watch your back, Emma Salvatore." I deleted it and focused on the life I was building instead. 2 months after our wedding, Dante came home early, his expression serious. "I have something to show you." He led me to his study, to a file on his desk. "Sophia and Marco want to tell Sophia about her adoption. They think she's ready to understand that she's loved by more than just them, that somewhere out there, her birth mother loved her enough to choose them." My hands shook as I opened the file. Inside were forms, letters, photographs, a plan for how to introduce me into Sophia's life properly as someone who'd given her the ultimate gift, not as a threat to the only parents she'd known. "They want you to be part of her life," Dante said quietly. "Officially, as Auntie Emma, if that's what you want. Someone she knows and trusts and sees regularly. Not her mother, that's Sophia, but someone who loves her anyway." Tears streamed down my face. "They'd do that? For me? For Sophia? And yes, for you." He pulled me against him. "You gave them the greatest gift imaginable. This is them returning it, letting you watch her grow up, be part of her life, love her openly. You'll never be her mother in name, but you can be her family, if you want it." "I want it," I whispered. "God, I want it so much." "Then we'll make it happen." He kissed the top of my head, together. 3 months after our insane, impulsive wedding, I sat in Marco and Sophia's living room with Sophia on my lap, reading her another story about brave girls and happy endings. Dante sat beside me, his hand resting on my knee, and Sophia bustled in with cookies warm from the oven. Auntie Emma, will you come to my birthday party? Sophia asked, looking up at me with those beautiful eyes. I'm going to be 4. I wouldn't miss it for the world, sweetheart. Good, because you're my favorite. She said it matter-of-factly, like it was just truth, then went back to studying the pictures in her book. My favorite. Not her mother, not the woman who'd given birth to her, just Auntie Emma who read her stories and brought her books and loved her with everything she had. It was enough. More than enough. It was everything. That night, lying in bed with Dante's arms around me, I finally understood what he'd given me. Not just protection or wealth or access to my daughter, though those were all precious. He'd given me a life where I mattered, where I was seen and valued and loved for exactly who I was, scars and all. I love you, I whispered into the darkness. His arms tightened around me. Say it again. I love you, Dante Salvatore. My insane, dangerous, impossibly good husband. He rolled me onto my back, his body covering mine, his eyes blazing in the dim light. I love you, Emma Salvatore, my brave, stubborn, perfect wife. He kissed me deeply, thoroughly, until I was breathless and clinging to him. Thank you for choosing me, for trusting me, for letting me keep you. Thank you for seeing me, I replied, for making me real. We made love slowly, tenderly, sealing the promises we'd made with our bodies, what we'd already sworn with our hearts. And afterward, wrapped in expensive sheets in a bedroom that smelled like cedar and home, I let myself believe in happy endings. Because maybe that's what this was. Not perfect, not easy, definitely not conventional, but real and messy and ours. 6 months after I'd poured coffee in a diner and thought I was invisible, I stood in Dante's study while he conducted business with associates who now treated me with respect instead of curiosity. Sophia's artwork hung on the refrigerator. My books filled the shelves. My clothes shared the closet with his expensive suits. I'd gone from nobody to Mrs. Salvatore, from invisible to protected, from alone to surrounded by a family I was still learning to trust. Rosa called every week, still worried, but gradually accepting that I'd landed on my feet. You sound happy, she'd said during our last conversation. Really happy. I never heard that in your voice before. She was right. I was happy, terrified and overwhelmed, and still learning how to navigate a world of danger and violence and impossible wealth. But happy in a way I'd never been, even before Daniel, even before I'd lost everything. Because I'd found something better than the life I'd lost. I'd found a life worth fighting for. Dante appeared behind me, his arms wrapping around my waist, his chin resting on my shoulder. What are you thinking about? How 3 days changed everything. How saying yes to a stranger in a storage room led me here. Regrets? His voice was carefully neutral, but I felt the tension in his body. Even now, he worried I'd wake up and realize I'd made a mistake. I turned in his arms, looking up at this man who'd promised me everything and delivered more than I'd dared to dream, not a single one. You? Only that I didn't find you sooner. He kissed me softly. But I have you now, and I'm never letting go. Good, I whispered against his lips, because you're stuck with me, Dante Salvatore. For better or worse. Probably mostly worse, knowing our luck. He laughed, the sound warm and genuine. Worse with you is better than best with anyone else. And standing in his arms, in a home that smelled like cedar and new beginnings, with my daughter's laughter echoing in my memory, and a future stretching ahead of us filled with possibility, I finally believed him. Daniel had asked who would marry me, who would want someone broken and poor and invisible. Turns out, the answer was a man powerful enough to give me back everything I'd lost, and patient enough to help me heal what he couldn't fix. And maybe that was what love really was. Not perfect, not easy. Just 2 broken people choosing each other, day after day, building something real from the ruins of what they'd been before. I'd gone from asking myself who would marry me to knowing exactly who. A man who'd looked at me in a diner and seen not my poverty or my pain, but the strength it took to keep smiling anyway. And that was worth every risk, every fear, every impossible leap of faith. Because in the end, We weren't just surviving anymore. We were living. Together. And that made all the difference.